Murali, we've met on Confluence Circles, which is a great meeting place to meet very interesting people. Confluence Circles is made up of coaches, therapists, people from either a medical, clinical, mental health, well-being background who get together on Fridays. And it generally tends to be a quite wide-ranging conversation on whatever actually turns up at the time. And you have been one of the participants in that and have a particularly interesting background, having grown up in different cultures, in different countries, doing different jobs. You bring a rich, diverse, interesting perspective into cultural circles. There you go. This is the first time I'm re-editing something on. You bring a fresh, interesting, and diverse perspective to Confluence Circles. And it's one of the reasons I'm very excited and very keen to welcome you to this podcast, because you, among others, have so much to share and from whom I can learn so much. Could you tell me a little bit about your beginnings and the context as an introduction?
Sure, Tim. In fact, Confluence has been very influencing on my current perspective, what I'm going through. Couldn't be a better time than now to join these Confluence circle on every Friday with Stuart and people like you to understand different perspectives to in the same world that we all live in. So there couldn't be a better forum or better platform than to come over on these Confluence circles to share without any agenda, so that we are not boxed into our thoughts and perspectives that we share with each other, the learnings that we share with each other. And it also opens up thought-provoking ideas and thought-provoking way forward. And it also tells you tells one that you're not alone, and there is so much to actually learn and move forward. These Confluence circles actually, while it is says circle, we're not circling around, but at least it's helping us to move forward with these circles. Complete strangers, and eventually we all become familiar with each other and more comfortable with each other. So that brings out the trust and safety as well in these circles. As far as my early beginnings are concerned, I was born in one place, did my primary education in another place, did my secondary education in another place. It was almost like uh, an army officer who gets posted from, I mean, we always say this, right? Pillar to post to pillar or pillar to post. That was my career in 30 years. I mean, this is my 13th or 14th relocation of place in
And
the last 30 years.
how does that affect you? Because if we look at early childhood development, a very disruptive childhood and moving around, the inability to sort of make lasting friendships because you're constantly on the move, that can be a real difficulty as you grow up in terms of development. But on the other hand, experiencing different places, different cultures, different people, different circumstances, that must be quite rich. Were you a beneficiary or did you find it quite hard moving around?
Uh, I never looked back to see what I've done in the past.
Mhm.
How is that going to be related in the future? It's only when you stop, look, and proceed, like the traffic signals, that's when it hits. It hits so hard suddenly after 31 years or 32 years. When I stopped and wanted to look back and reflect on what I did, oh my God, it's a shock sometimes. Uh, it is disruptive to the extent that, yes, I have lost a lot of friends. Uh, and at the same time, I've gained new friends. And somebody said to me long back, 30 years, I think this was at the early stages of my hotel industry career. when I was a dishwasher to start with. I didn't join there to wash dishes. That was a rude shock to me when I first joined, that I'll be washing dishes on the first day. Of course, there was a nice dishwasher. You just need to load the plates and then they go inside, they come out and you wipe them dry. So it was fun at the same time, a rude shock of my life, actually. After finishing my hotel graduations in Chennai, I never thought I'll be doing dishwashing. And then suddenly something stuck. The person who hired me was somebody else. He was a general manager of the hotel. He saw some potential in me, and I applied for something different. I mean, a receptionist or something like that. When the jobs were scarce, they were very scarce because of the Gulf War in 1991, and the way it shook me is like, my goodness. I mean, you better accept something that comes by, because 99 people out of 100 are not getting any job.
Mhm.
And I was lucky to get this job. Come what may, let me just take it up and then see what happens. And then things started unfolding. Things started unfolding in the form of mentorship, in the form of coaching, in the form of a pat on my back. Uh, uh, and I was the only guy in my dungaree. After finishing my shift, I would go to the executive dining room and have food with others. And they were all shocked. Who is this guy? He doesn't wear a tie or something. He's coming in his dungaree and then having food with us. And it was almost like going into a major or somebody in the army, which is the high rank, and then this low rank guy going there and having food along with them in this, I mean, with a different dress actually. And I didn't have the guts. It was my manager or a leader who actually pushed me there and said, be what you are, and let the best thing happen to you by being yourself. And that's the only way you can succeed. So these few words actually helped me a lot in that industry to actually scale up. And he said one more thing: as long as you're professional, as long as you're hardworking and not comparing with anybody, uh, you'll be successful. And I never looked back after that. It was 9.5 years that I worked in that industry. And yeah, so it's those early beginnings of first 10 years is like, uh, I won't feel, I mean, I was very, what do you call, keeping it to myself that I'm not a dishwasher, because if I say to my parents in India, they would say, what? What? I mean, have you joined as a dishwasher? No, 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 no. It's a management training program, actually. I didn't wash dishes for 9 months over there. It's just the starting, to see how you take up this work, because you're going to be a manager one day after finishing the management training program in Delhi. And I said, yeah, let me do this. So there wasn't a single tile that I left in that hotel to be cleaned. So I was in walking coolers, I was washing dishes, I was cleaning plates, I was, at the garbage, lifting the garbage bins onto the truck and things like that. So I did everything. So to learn that, the chairman's son was also doing the same thing in a different hotel at the same time. So I said, if he's not ashamed, why should I be ashamed of doing things? So it taught me uh, what is work like
Mhm.
uh, at the early stages of my career. And it's helping me even today, actually. So it goes a long way. And that's how it's been my early career. And transition challenges are like plenty. I can go on and on and on and on, talk about these transition challenges. And moving from one place to another place. Yeah, in the first 9 years, I was at the one place, but then after that, I moved the industry, and it changed my perspective of moving to places and meeting new people. And it always felt like I'm starting from scratch. Every time, every 2 years, I'm starting from scratch. Well, there are advantages of starting from scratch, because you're most unbiased, and you're not letting the unconscious bias stepping in, because you're always starting from scratch. You're giving benefit of doubt to yourself again and again and again. Uh, but it has its own disadvantages. And some of those disadvantages could be that you lose track of your friends, you lose track of your family, extended family, and you also lose track of sometimes yourself. What is the purpose
Mhm.
of doing this? Am I drifting? Or am I being adopted every time when I change the job? Or I'm just going aimlessly, or what we call is that headless chicken in various careers. At the same time, I see some of my colleagues and friends staying in the same job for decades, actually, uh, including my dad, who worked for a bank for 37 years. And he was intrigued by my changes. And he didn't understand, even after 20 years, that what are you trying to achieve, Murali? What is that you want to do? Well, paychecks are very good, but what is that you want to do? So, and that hit me after 30 years.
Mhm.
So the stop, look, and proceed. I've stopped, I'm looking, I don't know where I'll proceed.
Now that's interesting, because you're clearly a man whose talent has been recognized, and we'll explore further the mentoring and the advice that you've received along the way. But as I listen, it seems to me the path has opened up in front of you rather than you forging a path.
Absolutely. Yeah, you said it. You literally said it. Yeah. The path, the whatever path has opened up in front of me, I didn't think twice. I
Mhm.
just barged into that path. Of course, I had my own challenges to overcome, and I
Mhm.
relied on my prior experience and education. When I say education, it's not academic. It's education from mentors. It's education from my elders. It's education from my elementary school. It's education even from sports.
Mhm.
Sometimes the best example is I came second in the 200-meter dash, and my teacher said, "You know why you came second? You didn't come first. You looked who is who is trying to overtake you. At the last second,
Mhm.
you lost to that guy who was trying to overtake you." So the brilliant lesson that she told me was that you shouldn't have looked back. You should look forward. Just go ahead. You should have won first in that race. And that I can't forget that. I can't still forget that. And uh, the early ages of how teachers teach you, and the early ages of how parents have taught you and friends have taught you, it remains forever, actually. And some of the mentors and coaches. And I can always plot my dots. I think I did mention in the Confluence Circle sometimes that whenever I was at the peak, and I look back, oh my goodness, I was at the peak because of a great coach and a great mentor,
Mhm.
or a combination of both. And that happened in school, that happens in college, that happened in my life, that happened in my career, everywhere. So I'm able to connect those dots to the incidents that have happened to the extent that I'm able to understand those highs and lows much better now when I was actually experiencing those highs and lows. And that is only possible when you stop, look, and proceed,
Mhm.
uh, following these traffic signals. So probably the traffic signals ask me to, Murali, you need to stop now. Take a look, take a stock of everything that you've done and see where you want to go next.
And I imagine, having worked in hospitality, worked in hotels, and worked your way up, you, there's a lot of evidence that actually entrepreneurs tend to do very well when they've had a background in service industries. It's about getting on with people, it's about rolling up your sleeves and doing the task. How do you feel that background has served you now? Because you're no longer directly involved in hospitality at all. You've moved on and broadened your interests, but how has that core learning guided you?
Immensely, immensely, because the industry that I stepped into, which is financial services, is primarily to do with people.
Mhm.
But the only issue there is you're not meeting some of these people directly. Most of the time, you're meeting them indirectly, or you're serving them in a different manner. The only few people that you interact are your managers and leaders and your colleagues and your peers. That's it, really. So you're not actually sometimes meeting the end customer
Mhm.
to understand uh, what's been the impact on what uh, uh, one has delivered or one has implemented from a customer service point of view. It's only after a few months or a few years you get to know, oh, Murli, you made a huge impact. Oh, was it? By then I moved on. I
Mhm.
moved on to something else, and I'm like starting at a starting point of something else. And I wonder sometimes, why does it take such a long time for such feedback to come by? Is it because they want me again somewhere else, or is it got to do with timing, or is it to do with uh, anything else? I don't know. So the thing is, I mean, I can go back in time and say, uh, yeah, somebody asked me, what made you to move from hospitality to financial services? And I said, you can't take out the hospitality in me
Mhm.
uh, because that's ingrained now. It's like imprinting that happens when you bring a new dog or a cat. So it's almost like that for me. It's imprinted. And the navigation of that was much easy in the Western world because you learned some of these basics of customer service long back before you actually want to implement it in a different manner when you're interacting with your stakeholders in banks and financial services. And project management, when I started in 2001, without any qualifications of how projects work, I don't know, somehow I managed to do it brilliantly. In about 6 7 months, my boss said, you don't need you don't need me actually. You're on your own now. And I was bewildered and I was shocked and I was pleasantly surprised. And there was no way I can say that it's going back to hospitality industry. Uh, it was another ace on my sleeves. It was a feather on my cap, and soon to realize that the mentor and the coach who was attached to me uh, was a tough guy. He was giving me a lot of tough love in the first 6 months, and soon after that 6 months, I landed up in Jersey
Mhm.
for another 6 months. Of course, 3 months in Jersey, a month in India, another 2 months in Jersey, and then going back and forth between Jersey and Bangalore was my job at that point in time. And and he said, Murali, you have now probably the world's first person who has done a project management to move some work without having impact on the people in Jersey, HSBC, to India. It
Mhm.
was about 40 people's worth work. And I helped the bank to do much more in Jersey than they could ever imagine. And all of this happened in such a lovely time that my stakeholders in Jersey almost said after 6 months, they give me a farewell. And they said, you know what, whenever you come to Jersey, remember there's this person called Dana Duncan.
Mhm.
I don't know if she's going to hear this, probably she'll remember that you have a home in Jersey. You don't have to stay in a hotel. So you're always welcome if you want to ever come to Jersey. So it was such a lovely 6 months, I would say, but split in three phases. And that boosted my confidence. So sometimes I never regretted that I left hotel industry, but at the same time, I'm missing the touch and feel of that hospitality industry, which you sense it almost every hour or
Mhm.
every minute when you meet people. Here, you're not doing that. So that's the only regret in the financial services. Otherwise, uh, financial services pays well, and it paid me well. Unimaginable sometimes. And my wife was like thrilled. Oh wow, you're getting that kind of a pay? I never imagined. So I've had my great days with HSBC, excellent days with hospitality industry, And I sometimes feel that whatever you bring from one industry to another industry, it only lasts that much.
Mhm.
Uh, but fundamental do remain same. I never had today. If you look at project management, it is split into, I don't know, 10 different ways of doing this project. We never had all of that. We combined everything and anything, and we call it as common sense rather than project management. And it was implemented flawlessly, uh, on time, plus or minus a week here and there, not more than that. And single-handedly navigating with 3 or 4 more colleagues to support you and see the implementation. It was like concept to commissioning. So I've enjoyed project management without any project management qualifications. And today, if I look at project management qualification, oh my God, I mean, you made the art of project management into science of project management. And of course, there is some science in it. But we don't need so much of detail that we're all going through these PMPs or whatever uh, knowledge that they're imparting to youngsters. It's probably boxing them, and not understanding end-to-end impacts and how to overcome these impacts. So to overcome, you have another course, and to unlearn, there's another course. So you have compartmentalized the brain rather than using it comprehensively. So those are some of the regrets I have about financial services, because they have broken down into minute parts to de-risk it, perhaps, uh, or avoid risk taking, which is what the bank is all about, right? Mostly risk management. Yeah. So my lessons from hospitality to banking are immense. But comparatively, I still love, who can take over the first love from you? I mean, nobody. So my first love is still hospitality industry. I'm not going back. I may, you never know. But at the same time, financial services, I draw some parallels from hospitality industry in the financial services. It's people after all. And we have to see whether how this automation, AI is going to disrupt these two relationships of, financial services and people management. I don't know how that's going to. It's already happening, in a way that we've started asking people to work from home instead of working from the office, and they're regretting that already. And because we lose productivity, we lose that empathy, we lose that feel and the touch of face to face, and they're asking people to come back, which I understand why they're doing it, because I challenged my boss 3 years back and I said, it's not going to last. It's probably going to last maybe 3 to 5 years, but afterwards, we are people. I mean, we are 8 billion people. It's impossible to keep them at home and ask them to work. You're going to have issues at home. I mean, if a man stays at home for longer, you can imagine what sort of issues can happen. Uh, a man is destined to be adventurous, and you're killing that by keeping the man at home, or even a woman for that matter. I mean, humans are adventurous, and you can't keep them at home forever, right? And yeah, these are the challenges. And I had setbacks. It's not that I didn't. I had a very trajectory life, which is going in a 45 degrees angle in a graph. No, I had setbacks, and the setbacks were shocking, and setbacks were um, uh, what do you say? Some of them were even nightmares, and I don't know how I managed them sometimes. And if I recall how I managed them, I think for the first time in my life, I started meditating
Mhm.
with some, and perhaps that's the reason I was able to cope. Because when you meditate, there is a sense of purpose that emerges much more clear, much more much less ambiguity, and there's a clarity of thought which is much better. And and this is another example. I mean, when my boss used to say, "Be careful for what you ask for, you might get it." And I was very careful for what I was asking for, in terms of at the time of troubles that I had 3 years ago or 4 years ago. And I got it somehow. I mean, I don't know whether there is some divinity which has connected these dots for me, or my preparedness, or I navigated with a lot of resilience. We call it resilience, but I think resilience doesn't come just because we are hit with hard rock on our face. But resilience comes much earlier, I think. I mean, it's a built-in resilience in all human beings, right from the birth, uh, or even before the birth. I think we just fail to recognize that resilience over time, because we are drifting and drifting and drifting. And and when you stop, then you'll know that you're really drifting, and then what actions you need to take. So it's almost like fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
And we are not born to swim, but when we are dropped in the water, we automatically swim at a very young age, right? But it's just that we forget to keep those skills for long. And so with the resilience, we lose that resilience as we navigate our careers, only to realize that after some time, oh my goodness, this is what I have done in my childhood. This is what I could have done in my teenage. This is what I have done in my adulthood. And some of those examples are so fundamental that makes us remember. And then the teachers, the mentors, the coaches that we had, we just suddenly realize it's almost like in the face of death, let's say, for example, you get a picture of your entire life in few seconds. That's what happens, when you have to face these, unimaginable challenges. And that's what happened. And that's what happened to me in the last 3, 4 years or 9 years that I've been in UK. It's not that I'm not facing even now. I'm facing even today, but I'm able to understand why am I facing. I'm able to, my reaction to those challenges are much more uh, grounded now than before. And I know the seeds that have been sown will germinate, uh, but it's taking time. But I need to address why it is taking time. It's almost like, is there enough sunshine? Is there enough fertilizer? Is there enough water? Or is there enough soil? Or is there enough nutrients to this germination? That is why it's not happening. Or to have to sow more seeds somewhere else in a fertile land. Uh, so sometimes I feel that it is a fertile void that I'm traversing in my career.
I'm interested in sort of two threads that appear to emerge from what you're saying. The first is uh, the breadth of your experience in different industries and different places and different cultures, and that drive for service. I'm wondering if your experience is that people are fundamentally the same no matter where you are, or maybe the opposite, that customer services is recognizing the difference and being different for every single person according to their needs. What are your thoughts on that? How has your approach to customer service changed or matured?
Uh, while I want to say that fundamentally everybody is same, uh, the circumstances in which you come across each and every customer is different. The timing is different, and the personalities are different. Uh, in fact, uh, this concept of listening well uh, is right from my childhood for some reason, because uh, early in my childhood days, uh, we used to have dictation by the hostel warden on a Sunday afternoons. And if I don't write the correct word in a correct spelling, I have to write it 100 times.
Mm.
So we were listening very carefully because to avoid writing that 100 times. The lesson learned here is that why should I be punished for not listening well? I might as well listen well and not be punished,
Mm.
right? I mean, it was not a punishment, but at the same time, who wants to write 100 times the same word just to memorize, right? It's almost like chanting. Uh, if you keep on chanting the same thing, uh, one is that you will memorize, and another aspect is you get focus as well. So we were focusing on listening. So the listening part helped me a lot in understanding the customer service, and not just in hospitality industry, but also in financial services, and the importance of asking the right questions uh, makes the difference, and due to which I was asking the right questions to my customers, especially in the business development. And soon I was getting meetings after meetings, meetings after meetings. And it was so simple. I mean, sometimes it's very difficult for other people to comprehend because I'm not talking anything technical. I'm not talking anything pure business, because we can have a couple of workshops to do all of that. But a one-to-one customer interaction, I still use the technique of listening from what I've learned in my childhood. It's just that my questioning has changed, and my approach to power of pause uh, has helped me immensely in those 20 years of financial services. And not only with my customers, but also with my internal customers, which is dreadful sometimes in some of the Indian companies to navigate. And it's also to do with my teams and people who are coming from at least 30 different cultures. When I was managing about 1,300 people, most of my problems were managing by exceptions. Uh, you know, exceptions to any rules. Of course, rule was followed. We never broke any rules from a compliance perspective. But we had to navigate some of these stupid rules in the organization without having to change them, but at the same time, management by exception. And they say that, 80% of the leader's job is to manage those exceptions and those intricacies or challenges of people. That's it, really. There are many people under you to take care of the process, take care of the teams, take care of the customers. You just need to manage some of these exceptions that keep coming up often. So 80% of my day is to go in having rich conversations with people in my teams. And then that helped them actually to calm them down and to see things in a different perspective, and they resolve these problems much early. And 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 I was also asked, how do you manage to work only about 8 hours, 9 hours when uh, there are shifts from APAC to US? I mean, I used to work 15 to 18 hours to understand these cultures. I was wearing a hat of an APAC person in the morning, a hat of a UK and EMEA person in the afternoons, and a US hat in the evening. In between, I had to wear several other hats for these cultures. So I was constantly wearing uh, these hats. And this stems from my interactions in the hotel industry, because there's not a single person who comes from a same country. I mean, you have at least 25 country people visiting you, and each one has a unique way of needs. And that's the same thing which when I was in financial services, 1,300 people with uh, 30 different cultures. And at the same time, I may have about 20 clients to manage in a single day, and they are literally from 10 to 12 different cultures. So I was literally dealing with 30 to 40 cultures every single day on an average, probably about 20 cultures a day. Uh, so that built up resilience of understanding how people work. And fundamentally, their needs are the same. They're no different, actually. Uh, Everybody wants growth. Everybody wants recognition. Everybody wants a better life. And everybody wants to give better life to their family. And everybody wants to travel, see the world. And everybody wants to excel in whatever they do. And uh, and contribute to the organization. And when that doesn't happen, and I see people moving away and finding greener pastures. It's as simple as that. Whether we have AI today or not, or whether we have technological advancements or not, I think the fundamentals are something that nobody can take away until something drastically, something different happens in this world, uh, which I doubt, at least for the next few decades. So to answer your question, yes, fundamentally, we all are same. Uh, and uh, irrespective of race, color, caste, uh, cultures, we're all the same. I do compare things like, for example, if we eat bread, we eat naan in India. It's a bread. If we eat rice in Southeast, there is some form of rice here as well, right? Or in the West or in the United States. So the fundamental food that we eat is more or less the same. The way it is prepared, the way it is presented can be a million ways. So I compare people with food. I compare people culture with the way they eat and the way and what they eat. And we are what we eat is sometimes and we are what we're surrounded with, right? So understand the needs, and it goes back to even what is that? Maslow's theories of hierarchy. You can never take them away. I mean, they're there. So, you know, and I recognize them very soon in any teams and see that, okay, this is the main issue that's causing you. And even with clients, every business decision is personal to him or her. Uh, Whether it could be growth or whether it could be that they want to achieve something in this role for themselves. It keeps them going for next decade or so. Or whether it could be that, they love travel, that's why they've taken this secondment position to India and some things like that. Or they want to find a new partner in a different culture. It could be various things. And the moment you allude to all of these needs, the basic needs, uh, I think we are in a better place. Except that, nowadays we're not meeting as often we should, thanks to pandemic. And we're hiding behind the screens, actually.
I'm interested in, it's almost a paradox when you say that in a day that you might deal with 20, possibly even 30 cultures in a day, and then you say that actually people are fundamentally the same, which suggests actually there aren't 30 cultures, there's just one because we're more or less the same. So I find that quite interesting. And I'm going to shift that across a little bit. One of the things that you talked about growing up is how you are resilient and how your approach to resilience has changed. So just like working with people and their ambition and their culture, how does resilience change in different environments, in different circumstances, and for different people? I can imagine, for example, you'll have customers who are happy or anxious or frustrated, such as the nature of customer service for any industry. How do you see resilience?
most of the times when one faced with challenges, I think we're always faced with challenges to address immediate needs.
Mhm.
And sometimes when immediate needs are not met, people can get frustrated, thinking that it has a long-term impact on their needs in the medium term or longer terms. So sometimes it's best to address the immediate need, irrespective of what consequences are there, but also explaining that, this is a short-term fix, but not a long-term one. So meandering around uh, those quick fixes and also educating these customers about its impact on long term, uh, I think every culture will understand that, because they're always in a hurry to meet something, meet a deadline, meet their needs, which gives them gratification. It's almost like, you know, I've learned this again at the early stages of HSBC days. When an email comes from a customer, within the reasonable time, respond saying that, I acknowledge this email. It's that simple. I'm working on it. So you can keep the customer at ease and that, you've been looked after. So if you can address that immediate need that, I've sent an email, but there's no acknowledgement, I don't know who's seeing it. So if you can stop several hours of anxiety or anxiousness, I think that takes care, attention to these people, irrespective of the culture, has always helped in actually resolving some of the complex problems in a simple way, actually. Because the problem is being perceived as very complex, is actually very simple most of the time. It's just the anxiousness, is the uncertainty around the problem makes the problem more complex.
I'm curious, that almost suggests that resilience is a short-term thing. Resilience is get through this, bat that email away, do a sort of short-term fix to make them happy, whilst perhaps there is an opportunity to look at the long term. And indeed, your career appears to have been a series of sprints rather than one continuous marathon. What is your sort of time horizon? How far ahead do you think, whether it's in a period of adversity and resilience, or whether it's in a period of growth? What's your time horizon?
What do you mean by that time horizon? Can you elaborate that?
Do you look forward to tomorrow, or do you think this is what I'm going to do next year? Or do you think my 5 year plan is something or other? Or indeed, the opposite, if you're coping with adversity, do you literally concentrate on being able to get out of bed in the morning? Or do you have a longer term objective to sort of reach for the stars and something more noble and long term?
Right. I mean, yeah, what I'm seeing is how I'm going to see myself in the next 5 years, 10 years, and 15 and 20. So it's trying to split that, into four parts and see how I can actually stitch it
Mhm.
uh, to form my own path-finding way. It's going to be enormously difficult to plan for 10 years or 20 years, but then a broad idea of what it should be is something that I'm pondering. It's not at concrete though,
Mhm.
but it will be. It's similar to, how I prepared myself getting into hotel industry. I never thought I'll get into hotel industry. The only reason I got into hospitality was you get good food, you get your free laundry. I mean, those are the very adolescent age where, you want freebies and you want great food and you want to meet great people. It's out of curiosity I got into that industry. And then I got married into that industry for nearly 10 years. I loved the way I worked. And similarly with financial services, So I think I'll have to do it all over again to see what is that I can do, but with a lot of thought, a lot of planning. And it's not easy to plan, suddenly when you are trying to find a different mountain altogether. And what if there is no mountain, right? And what if there is no sea where this river joins the water, right? Is it a desert? There's so many questions that comes across because you face so many challenges. And perhaps I need another guiding hand, another coach, another mentor to see through the next 2 decades or 3 decades that I'm going to live. And how is that going to impact with not just me and people around me, especially when the levels of anxiety and the levels of uncertainties are growing. And whatever I built over the last 30 years, the bricks and the building blocks and things like that, how is that somebody can use this as a foundation to grow with lesser anxiety and less uncertainty. Uh, and I've used this word also most often. Either you cope or quit. And I think those coping mechanisms uh, are good. The quitting mechanisms are also equally good because at some point in time you got to quit because it's like beating the dead horse, right? And this is something that I've learned in HSBC again, right? Where my clients used to beat my team, back and forth, and then my super leader had to come to my rescue, and she used this phrase for the first time, and said, Ken, you're beating the dead horse here. It'll not move any forward. I mean, you have to back off and reflect on what you did from a training perspective, these people, and capacity perspective, these people. So I learned the first time over there. So sometimes you got to give up and say, you're not giving in, but you have to give up and say, move on. I mean, there's no point in digging the same well where you're not going to get the water. I mean, you're going spirally down and then you'll not be able to surface up. So that's also resilience. And quitting is also resilience. Uh, and the balance between coping and quitting, is becoming uh, more stable, I would say. So I think with the stability of between coping and quitting, you find a better path, is what I think in the next couple of decades.
I'm curious. There's almost a pattern that appears to emerge when you talk about coping or quitting, and I might challenge maybe thriving is an option, but we can come back to that. You used the phrase, climbing one mountain and then another, and then looking for the next mountain. You a little earlier talked about there is this thing to always travel, to be stuck at home and not to travel is ostensibly restrictive to growth. And yet you've been successful. I mean, some people, if they have a house halfway up a mountain, they sit there and retire, maybe farm the field, look after the goats. But you've never laid roots, really. You're constantly on the move. You're looking for the next mountain. And despite looking with fond affection at hospitality and at banking, there's no indication in this conversation that you want to go back. It's this relentless move forwards, and the coping or quitting rather than thriving. Are you looking for somewhere to thrive, or you quite happy effectively living off the land and seeing what path emerges in front of you?
It's going to be a combination of things now, because sometimes it is good to consolidate a lot of your experience, and sometimes it is just find the new mountain and move on. And uh, things have changed. Things have changed a lot. To get stuck upon what you did in the past Well, fundamentals will always help you. You're not losing that. You can never take away those from any human being. Uh, However, his world has changed. His fundamentals, the basic characteristics of that particular human being remains, what you learned in the formative years, in the first 7, 8 years or 10 years. As I say, you can't teach your kid after 20. That's it. I mean, the level of what you can teach your kid diminishes with his age from 7 years to 20 years.
I
As
hope
long
that's not true as somebody who's just teaching himself how to podcast, and I'm well past 20.
yeah. I mean, when I say that, I mean the fundamentals. You cannot teach any more fundamentals. It's very difficult to imbibe certain basic educations after 20. You are what you are, and then you develop around those basics, and that makes you as a person or a purpose.
Do you feel that you've stopped learning? You're past 20?
In fact, no. My learning is different after 20, but the seeds that have been sown before 20 are the ones that are giving fruits. And I would have branched out to many further branches like any other tree. But there's a time that your learning now becomes more enriching and more meaningful and purposeful, and makes useful for many others actually. So it's like fruit-bearing tree, which hangs low. It doesn't probably grow any further, but it hangs low. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm before finding the next mountain, I'm hanging low and waiting for anybody to pick those fruits and see what they can get out of it. So that's my interim phase, I would say. It's not going to be the permanent phase for the next 2 decades. Yeah, reflection, self-discovery are some of the things. When you're trying to discover yourself, the hardest part is answering that why. Why am I here? What am I going to do? Why I'm doing this? Why next phase? What should I do? I mean, whether it's, as you rightly said, whether it's going to be another set of sprint or a marathon. So it is still undecided. And the longer you stay in that undecided world, the more anxious one can get, which I understand. But at the same time, you have to spend enough time to think and think twice before setting on a new journey, which can be equally daunting, equally challenging, if not more, because 50 years, 30 years back, there were probably 5 billion people. Now it's 8 billion or even more. I never imagined India could take over China in 30, 35 years. So there are more people, there's more disruption, and there are more opinions and views that one has to deal with. But at the same time, is there a unique, what do you call that? A representation of Murali that can propel for the next 5 to 10 years. That is something that I'm searching for.
And at 56 minutes, that is the perfect hiatus, crux. This has been a fascinating conversation, and I'm very grateful that you've shared your thoughts with me. I have one final question, if I may. There's a lot, despite the changes in your life, that has remained stable. You talk about cultures effectively being stable over time, that people are effectively the same no matter where they are. And you talk of a series of mountains, but you also talk about significant change. And there's a minor reference to AI and just now to sort of population and growth and the amount of people on the planet. But if people and cultures and wants and needs are fundamentally the same, what, in your opinion, has fundamentally changed?
It's a bold statement. I mean, nothing has really changed. Nothing. We are seeing, it's almost like seeing, there are three basic colors, and we are seeing a million combinations of these colors, perhaps even more. So it's a bold statement saying that, a rainbow is only 7 colors. The basic colors are only 3. So fundamentally, nothing has changed. We just have derivatives upon derivatives, and we are playing around with those derivatives. And sometimes I feel that we lose the core of those derivatives. And we are branching out into very narrow and thin layers. My only fear would be, are we losing the root by doing that? And the moment you lose the root, you lose a lot of things. While it may look colorful, it may look very vibrant on the top, but the underlying root is decaying or rotting or neglected. That's my fear. And that's when I think my meditation has helped me to go back to the root, whether it is a problem or whether it is an achievement. It stems from that root, from the core values that we bring. And if humanity is still surviving today, it's probably because of that root is still there. We haven't lost touch with our roots. And if you go back to the roots, today, if you're having so many cultures, so much vibrancy, and so much of this one, it probably stems from very few roots, actually. And that's for that reason I'm saying this. There's not been any change. There's nothing in the change to the way we look at things, actually. So I think we often want to go back and reflect on our deep inside. And that's when I call that's the root. If you go to the root of it, you'll be more grounded, and you perhaps have a good 360 view of what's happening around you, and rather than being on the periphery. And then the dangers of being in periphery is that I go back and reflect it in planetary and science at the same time, where you can fly off a tangent into oblivion, right? And it's very similar to our solar system. I mean, if it's the sun's gravity which is keeping Earth go fundamentally around and around for millions and millions and billions of years, right? So I think if Earth were to be forgetting the sun, it would fly off into somewhere else, drifting somewhere. So I think I draw a lot of inspirations from such profound science and art to stay grounded, at the same time navigate my next course over the next 2 decades. So I'm still planning.
We've had a brilliant, broad, eclectic, interesting conversation. If you were to conclude with a couple of sentences, what would be your key message from what we've discussed today?
Yeah, I think irrespective of background, career, race, color, wherever you come from, uh, I think I think staying grounded and uh, understanding others and helping others to find their path uh, are something that, I go back to very, very basic, uh, of human being. That's why we don't say anything else. The next word is human being. Being is more important, uh, irrespective of what happens. And the sharing, caring, hand holding, uh, irrespective of age. We don't just handhold toddlers, we handhold even adults. Lots and lots of CEOs need handholding, and that's why they rely on coaches and mentors. They're crying inside, actually. They don't show up, but they're crying. Yeah. And balancing between coping and quitting are some of the takeaways, I think. Uh, instead of going extreme, that balance and consistency uh, will help in any industry and any walks of life at any point in time. And of course, self-discovery is sometimes through deep meditation. So those are some of the takeaways of this conversation.
Thank you. And that's a great, thought-provoking and valuable share. So thank you very much indeed. I've enjoyed this tremendously.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for this opportunity. And if this is recorded, I think it's over now. So if this is recorded, I will use this recording for my own reflections, for finishing that blog. It's almost there, but I need to do the finishing touches of that blog. I've never done this blog before. So, oh my God, wonderful conversation.
You enjoyed it?
Yep.
Good.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much. I'll press pause. It takes, to be honest, a couple of days because I'm still learning to edit, cut, paste, annotate, stuff like that. But I shall send you a link in due course. And thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Christmas and New Year to you. Now I'm trying to, is it Diwali? No, Diwali's ages ago now, isn't it?
Yeah. I think the next Indian festival is, I'm not religious, by the way, I'm an atheist. So I still follow some of these things to keep my family happy and others happy. Yeah, the next is the Harvest Festival in January.
Mm-hmm.
It is celebrated almost three-fourths of the country, or almost, yeah, I mean, three-fourths of the country celebrates this Harvest Festival in a different forms.
I'm not religious either, but it has not escaped my notice that starting in February, it's the year of the dragon. And I'm a dragon who is born in the year of the dragon. So I'm hoping 2024 is a good year for me. That would
I
be
hope so. I hope so.
a good
And
year for us all.
yeah, I mean, in fact, I was telling somebody in 2019, you know what? 2020, it's a great number. And you know what happened after that?
Well, change has winners and losers and always has opportunities. So
Yeah.
thank you very much indeed. Have a lovely evening. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.